to my video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below. And before we get started on this video, if you have not watched my last video, which was my task 1, you need to stop my video right now and you need to go back and watch that one before you watch this one, because I don't want you guys to be lost in my videos. So yeah, kind of click back and go check. Come on. It's okay. You can go back and click. Go back and click. Yeah. So with this video, I'm going to be talking about my task 2. So task 2 was instructing and engaging the focus learner. And as you do this part, I know you're probably thinking, what do I need to think about? So now in your task 2, you need to be able to demonstrate how you engaged and support your focus learner's progress toward that learning goal that you had for your student. So you want to think about the student's learning environment. And learning environment meaning what kind of setting was it in? So with the learning environment for my student that I worked at, it was a tutoring session, but she had more of that close one-to-one support. My videos that we did our filming in was in our building at our college, and we were able to film in like a closed setting where she was more comfortable than being in an open setting with a lot of other students who were also filming for their Edtpa. So we had like a video room that we were able to sign in and sign out, and we had to sign up for times and dates that we wanted to use it, and during that time, that's when my colleagues or any other students that were doing the Edtpa at that time, we were able to use those video rooms to film for our Edtpa. So you want to say how you demonstrated and respect or rapport with your learners. Respect and rapport meaning like how did you make the student comfortable? Like what were some of the things that you did before you guys get started into your lesson? Maybe it was a certain handshake or something that you guys did just to make the student just feel comfortable. And how did you show them respect? Did you let them talk about their day first and get to know your student, things of that nature? So that is what rapport and respect is. If you need to know, like if you're still not understanding what respect and rapport is, they do have like a handbook where it has like a glossary where it really explains in depth what they mean by respect and rapport in the back. When your college gives you like that big they're gonna give you like a Edtpa packet where it explains all the glossary terms, because even I had an issue like, what do they mean by respect and rapport? And it's so hard because my student was very quiet. We didn't do any handshake and all these things, but it's like you really had to sit back and think like, what is something that you and your student really connected on, where you and her like really had that kind of respect and that rapport for one another? How did you demonstrate it? And if you did, where did you demonstrate that in your video? You're also going to think about how do the strategies engage and motivate your focus learner in learning the task to achieve those lesson objectives. So you're going to think about what are some of the strategies that you're using. So the strategies, of course, for me was the reciprocal teaching strategies, breaking it down, and then being able to motivate her to move along and just adding more to make it more rigorous for her. And then you want to think about how are you connecting your new learning to the focus learner's prior knowledge, skills, and personal, cultural, or community assets. Now, personal, cultural, or community assets. You're using this basically anything that your student does outside of the school hours. You're going to put that in there because that's something personal, cultural, or community assets. So, for example, my student liked to do karate. If your student is into Minecraft, maybe your student is into superheroes, that's something that's personal. That's something that the student is. If there's something that her and her family does, has a tradition that they do in their household or with their family members, that's something that you want to write. And you're going to see personal, culture, or community assets come up a lot because they want to make sure that you're bringing that along as you're doing your lessons. You're relating it. You're relating something in your lesson that goes back to that cultural, community, or assets. If you want to know more in detail what they mean by the personal, culture, or community assets, like I said before, they do have an Edtpa glossary with all these terminologies. And if you need to use it, you can always go back and reference it just to make sure for clarification. Use it. That glossary is your best friend, because sometimes they're throwing so much terminology and it's like, what does that mean again? What does self-generalization and maintenance mean again? So that glossary is going to be your best friend. Next one is, how are you using strategies and materials to scaffold instruction for or otherwise support the focused learner? This goes back to what I was using, the reciprocal teaching strategies, and I'm just saying how I scaffolded for my students, so she can use it. Next one, how will your instructional strategies, plan supports, and materials support learning capitalize on the focused learner's strengths and developing or applying the appropriate self-directed learning strategies? So it says plan support. So you're going to talk about those plan supports, why you're using it. Then you're going to capitalize on her strengths. What are her strengths? What are some of the strengths that she has? This might be a little bit tough because you might not know what some of your students' strengths are. So if you go on your student's IEP, the teacher has already put in what are some of the strengths that she notices with the student. That the student is very cooperative, the student is good, the student is kind, the student is very passionate. Those are strengths that the students already have. So those are the student's strengths. How are you going to capitalize that in her learning? She's good at this. She's very cooperative. She's kind. She's straightforward. You're going to use those strengths. And then you're going to talk about self-directed learning. How are you directing her? How is she directing herself in order to meet those learning strategies? And how will you use evidence from your instruction to examine and change your teaching practices to more effectively meet the focused learner needs for acquiring, generalizing, maintaining, and or self-directing the use of the goal-related knowledge and skills? So generalizing and maintenance. Generalizing and maintenance, basically, I use the grows and glows. So the grows and glows was basically where my student was able to write something that she did good at, which was a glow, and then I provided her with a grow, something that she needed to work on. So as stated before, whenever I started another lesson with my student, how I did it is I provided my student with feedback, and I let her know how she did on the last lesson, and I provided her, I said, you did really good on this, and I liked how you did this, but what I'm looking forward to in this lesson, I'm looking for you to grow on more on this. I want you to stop more here. I noticed that you weren't stopping after 3 pages, so now I need to add in a stop sign. And that's something that me and my student discussed over time, because I noticed that she wasn't stopping and my student kept writing the same thing, what she needs to grow on. So I nipped that in the bud, because I'm like, I can kind of see my pattern. I can kind of see the pattern where my student is going to go. She's going to write this for a grow for the whole thing. And I'm like, no, you're not going to write that for the whole thing. Let's nip that in the bud. So I made a stop sign. So that stop sign was used that after she read every 3 pages, she had to hold up a stop sign. FYI, if you ended up having to add a planned support, not saying that's going to happen to you, but if it does happen to you and you have to add a planned support out of nowhere, that's okay. You can use that planned support to reflect in your task 3 and reflect on why you had to use that planned support, even though it wasn't planned from the beginning of the lesson, but you had to put it in because X, Y, and Z. And then you explain that in task 3, because your task 3, you're just doing a reflection on everything that you did. You just explain in detail why you did that. Also in your task 2, you are filming your lessons. Now you're probably going to ask me, do I need to film all my lessons? Let me tell y'all something. Y'all better film all those lessons. Film all of those lessons. A matter of fact, read that task 2 and look at what they're asking you to do in the film. I would say read that ahead. See, that's something that I didn't do. I skimmed through task 2, but I really didn't read in detail like what they wanted me to do, because I filmed all 4 of my lessons, and as I was rewatching my film and my video, I noticed that some of the things that they were asking me in task 2, I didn't do in lesson 1. I probably did it in my lesson 4, or I did it in my lesson 3 or my lesson 2. And then it got really hard because I didn't know which video I wanted to use. I'm like, I want to use lesson 1 because they get to see how I started the lesson, but then if I But if I use my lesson three, I did the reciprocal teaching game with my student, and I want them to see the rapport and just see the fun time that we had, and just to see that creative side, how I put in that chess, or some how I decided to use chess and use the reciprocal teaching strategy skills and everything all together into a game with something that she really, really liked. So it's gonna be really hard for you to pick in between all of your videos, depending on how many lessons you do, whether it's 5 or 4. It's really gonna be hard to really decipher which videos you're going to use and which one you're going to talk about in your task 2. That's why I'm saying read task 2 first, take notes of what they want in A, B, C, and D, and then see if you can do that in your videos as you're filming. So when you rewatch all of your videos, it's kind of easier for you to pick which video you're going to use, which videos you're not. But I say film all of your lessons. I had a hard time with that, and I ended up picking my lesson 1 because I wanted them to see how lesson 1 started, just to see how the learning goal and everything was constructed. And then my lesson 3 is where I did that reciprocal teaching, where I showed, her personal culture or community assets, because my student loved chess. So for example, we played the reciprocal teaching game. So how my student, like I said, she loves chess. Chess is not my thing. She used to beat me like crazy. If I tell y'all how many times she beat me, I'm embarrassed to say it on here. She beat me in chess. So how I got my students, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get her. I came up with a game where we use these little chess pieces that I got off of Amazon. I know, it's so cute, right? We use those chess pieces, and my student had to at least make a prediction, question, clarification, or summary. If she made at least one, she can move a chess piece. And then, we would play it back and forth. And then if she provided me evidence, she was able to move like the bishop, the queen, or the pawn. If she didn't provide me no evidence, she couldn't move. So so now how I got her is, she knows she wants to beat me in chess. But I've challenged her now, because in order for her to move a piece, she cannot move a piece unless she used one of the reciprocal teaching strategies, which is question, clarification, and summary and prediction. So I got her. You need to find a way of how you're going to get your student, how you're going to motivate her. Right there, that motivated her, because I knew she's not going to get me on this, because I'm pushing the limit. So I wanted to show that in my video, and you get to see, my student was smiling. She was so into it. She found it so hilarious. And that was honestly one of my favorite lessons with her that I did, and I'm so happy that I was able to show that to whoever was grading my test, because you really get to see, like, I'm bringing in something that she liked. I'm thinking outside of the box, and I'm giving her something that she's so used to, because she plays chess, and she used to play it in elementary school, and she actually went to the championships with her school. So she's really into chess. She's really good. So I did that. So you also want to think about that, and then also your lessons. At this point, you should have all your lessons written out. But this was my lesson 1. My lessons was very detailed with my planned support. I used teacher prompts. I said all the prompts, my instructional resources, what I was going to use, the measurable objective. I talk about my baseline data. So whatever you say for your lesson 1 on your baseline data, what you did. This is the back. I know it's a lot. But really, when you start doing your lesson plans for Edtpa, I feel like with me, I feel so much confident in writing lessons now, because I had to do it for these 4. And it wasn't that bad. Like, because the baseline, you just copy and paste for all of the lessons, because that's what you did. So that was a quick breeze. And then you just talk about how the activities and support strategies for this lesson will draw on the student's needs and interests. So I talked about, what her interest was. I talked about the glows and grows. I talked about the gradual release responsibility model. You talk about that. You talk about what was the plan support. You also need to think about the communication skill. You need to think about the communication skill, and this can be very tricky, because they want you to pick one, and sometimes in your video you can be communicating to your student very different. You could be doing it through verbal response. She can be doing it by holding up something to you. She can do it by writing, or she can do it by talking to you. So you need to come up with what is that communication skill that your student is going to do with you. So my communication skill that my student was going to do was writing. That graphic organizer, she was communicating to me through the graphic organizer because she had to write each of the reciprocal teaching strategies, whether it was 2, 3, or 4. She was communicating to me through writing. So that's something that you want to think about too. They only need one. So it's either the student is going to be verbally talking to you, either the student is going to be writing, or whatever other communication skill there is, but they explain that in detail in that glossary. They only want you to pick one. So if your student is writing, I say, hey, just stick to writing because that's how your student communicated to you. And then you're going to talk about the assessment of the activities, how you're breaking it down, the criteria for success, and you're just breaking everything down. But as you start doing your lesson plans, like I felt like after this, I felt so strong and confident in doing my lesson plans. Like it got so much easier for me. I was like, I can do this. So, and I love the format of how Edtpa wants you to do your lesson plans. I really love the format, and I think that's something that I'm most likely going to use when I start my first year of teaching because I just found it so much easier for me. You also want to make sure that you're using the universal design of learning also as well. They do want to see that you are using UDL in your lesson planning. So your school is also going to provide you a link for that, the universal design of learning. You can look that up online, do some research. It's more so about, like I said, modifications and differentiation. Differentiation. I'm sorry. So all those things, like if your kid likes to do music, writing, other ways that you can get to them by using these different things to support your learner and motivate them. So those are some things that you're gonna be doing. So task 2 is basically you've written up your lessons. It's very detailed what you're gonna be doing. You're basically from task 1, you're writing all your lessons. Then task 2, you're just basically filming. You're filming your lesson. You're looking back at it. You're analyzing. You're going through your task 2 based on those questions that they give you, and you're looking to see, did you do these things that they're asking you for task 2? Did you do it in lesson? Did you do it in your video 1? Did you do it in your lesson 2? Did you do it in your video 3, your video 4? If you already know your student and you know which video you want to use and your student is a limelight and they were great throughout all the filming, then good. You're straight. But with my student, it was hard because she was shy and I felt like I was doing a lot of prompting and I didn't kind of want to show that because I'm like, it just you just start to overthink stuff. You really start to overthink stuff, and that's what I was doing. And this part I kept going back and forth with. I had a lot of going back and forth to the point where I just told my professor, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to pick. And she's like, just pick whichever one you like, whichever one is best for you. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's 4 videos. So that's why I said film all your videos. You really have to sit and look at it from 1 minute to this minute. Like I said, you're only using about 20 minutes of your video in this. You also need to look at the rubric very precisely. So basically you only need to the video can't be no more than 20 minutes. You have to cut the video at a certain point. You have to play it all the way through. You can't cut and put bits and pieces in there. No, you do that, they're not watching your drawing. That's an automatic fail. You need to select 2 video clips, and it needs to be a total of no more than 20 minutes, but not less than 3 minutes. This is where you need to look at the rubric. You need to look at the rubric. Make sure your clips. Make sure when you're doing your video that you can be seen on it and your student can be seen on that video. Make sure it's on. Make sure you kind of prepare your student and let them know, like, hey, I have to video you because I have to do my Edtpa. So you want to kind of get your student comfortable with the cameras, so they're not like doing crazy stuff looking at the camera and you can't get them to focus. So before you start like getting into like your lesson and filming them, kind of do it with your kid, but you're just doing like a regular session, like just to see how they feel with the camera around them before you actually get in depth in your lesson, because you want to make sure that the student is comfortable. If the student is older, of course, you'll just tell them like, you know, I'm doing my state testing and this is what I have to do, and I just want to get both of us, not only you comfortable, but get me comfortable with speaking with you and doing this part of my exam. Older kids are very understanding. Now, when it's younger kids, you got to start them from early, you know, so they can get comfortable, you know, or do like some little games to kind of get them started before you actually start your instruction with that student. So I say with task 2 is when you definitely need to use the rubric and look to see that you're following all the things that you need to follow when you're filming for your task 2. So I hope with this video that this was very helpful, that you guys can have a better understanding of what task 2 is about. If you guys have any questions, comments, please leave them down below. And my next video, I will be doing task 3. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, guys. See you in the next video.